Taking place in the Australian Alps, Dungeons of Hinterberg is an action-adventure dungeon crawler that was released for Steam on July 18th, 2024. After seeing the trailer for the first time back in 2023, I was immediately drawn to the main protagonist, the game's bright colors, art design, and sword combat. In this game, you play as Luisa Dorfer, a lawyer from Vienna. Luisa decides to spend her vacation in Hinterberg, a historic and touristy town well known for its dungeon slaying and magical history. This vacation not only served as a getaway for Luisa, but also offered her an important opportunity to reassess her life as a whole. Throughout the game, you meet all kinds of people from Hinterberg, ranging from other tourists to seasoned locals. The writing for all the other characters you interact with was pretty good, as they each exhibited a personality of their own and a story that you learn more about the more you interact with them. I will say, the dog, who I ended up naming Walter, was my favorite character in the game, despite the small role he played. Exploring dungeons felt pretty relaxed, and at one point I obtained the Vienna Weekend Warrior outfit, and wearing it made me feel like I was just casually exploring dungeons with my little water bottle hanging from my backpack. While dungeon crawling was a big part of the gameplay, there was also a deep story to be experienced while Luisa was out and about in the town. Discovering further information about the mysterious earthquakes, cracks in the dungeon's magic, and sketchy mayor activity kept Luisa pretty busy when she wasn't fighting shit in a dungeon. Also, when I first discovered Hinterberg's clothing store, I essentially laid eyes on what became my sole purpose to progress in the game. And that was to obtain enough commemorative dungeon coins and Hinterbucks to purchase the Lederhosen outfit for Luisa. Combat was super fun as it was comprised of sword strikes, magic attacks, and dodges. Playing this game helped me gain even more experience gaming with a mouse and keyboard, and while I often accidentally healed myself with a potion while trying to press a completely different key, I was still able to get through all the difficult combat levels and ultimately completed the main game. Each day you spend in Hinterberg is counted, and you're able to experience the game and all it has to offer at your own pace. Your actions and interactions throughout the day would usually pass time, so it was important to get certain chores finished prior to doing an activity that uses up your time. This aspect of the game reminded me of Persona 5 Royal's time-passing gimmick. I made sure to sell all my trash, stock up on items, and upgrade my weapon and gear whenever I made it back to the town. The further I got into the game, the more powerful my weapons and upgrades became, earning me a level 11 defense stat and level 10 attack stat by the end of the game. Puzzles were a large component in the game's dungeon crawling portions. Thankfully, no puzzle was too difficult to solve, and I never felt stuck to a point of needing to turn to the internet for help. The puzzles themselves were quite clever and fun, as some took longer to complete than others, and it felt very satisfying to solve a super difficult puzzle. After completing every single dungeon and finding every single commemorative coin, while sporting Lederhosen, I spent the rest of my days completing friendships with other characters in the game to unlock further perks and upgrades. This brought me to the end of the game, where Luisa gained not only a new outlook on life and new friendships, but also a personal connection with magic itself. Each of the game's 4 main areas differed in atmosphere, with my favorites being Hinterwald and Brunelsumpf. One thing I really liked about these 2 areas is that they both felt relaxing, but in 2 different ways. Like, I could see myself visiting either one to relax, just based on my current mood. The game's character designs were unique and had a cartoonish charm. There was one scene in the game that was absolutely hilarious to me, and it was when some monsters had just spawned into the town, and Luisa had to help fight them off to protect the townspeople. Meanwhile, on the side, you see these 2 Hinterberg police officers just straight up shooting the monsters with their guns, and I don't know if it was even effective, but it was pretty laughable. There were a lot of different kinds of enemies in this game, and their varying designs and special attacks made the combat more fun. I was actually kind of freaked out by how the Tatzelworm looked, and the second I saw it slithering, I was definitely unsettled. That was my favorite boss battle. Listening to the game's music on its own after completing the game gave me a newfound appreciation for it, as I was unaware of how powerful the percussions were in a lot of the battle tracks, and really loved how they sounded. It took me about 9 hours to fully get into the game. In the beginning, I was completing the dungeons, but I felt like I was just simply going through the motions. However, I continued playing, and the game eventually grew on me as Louisa became more powerful with her upgraded weapons and gear. It also helped that I set that in-game goal for myself to obtain the Lederhosen outfit. All in all, the game's combat was fun, the puzzles weren't too difficult, and the story flowed well. I really appreciated the sense of continuity the game presented when Louisa wasn't in the dungeons, as the game struck a nice balance between dungeon crawling and experiencing the story's narrative. This game also served as my own little vacation from playing Metal Hellsinger. I started the Renaud episode after completing the main game, and saw that it was a prequel to the original game's events. I finished a couple levels from this episode and haven't picked it up since. The levels, puzzles, and combat were enjoyable with a bit of a higher difficulty than the original game, which I liked, but eventually I just wanted to move on to play something else.